It was just another Saturday morning, or so I thought. The sun was already creeping up, casting a soft glow over the still lake in my backyard. I stood on my dock, fishing rod in hand, ready to spend another peaceful weekend like I had for the past 15 years. I'd paid my annual fishing fee. No complaints, no issues. I cast my line into the water, the ripples spreading out in smooth, concentric circles, and leaned back, letting the quiet hum of nature surround me. Then I heard it. Footsteps, heavy, determined. I turned, and there she was. Wendy Clark, our HOA president, a clipboard in hand like she was about to issue a death sentence. Behind her were two board members I vaguely recognized. They were flanking her, stone-faced and silent. Wendy's smile, though, was the kind that made you want to run. Mason Brooks, she said, her voice sharp like a whip. I'm issuing a citation for environmental damage during protected spawning hours. I blinked. What? She handed me a piece of paper, thick and official looking. $3,500, the fine read, for fishing during protected hours. My stomach dropped. I'd followed every rule, paid every fee, and fished the same spot for over a decade without a single problem. I was in the clear. Environmental ordinance supersedes all fishing permits, Wendy said, her tone smug. Pay up or face court action. I stared at the fine, disbelief creeping in. This had to be some sort of mistake. I pulled out my phone, showing her the receipt for my fishing permit, valid and up to date. I pointed to the sign posted by the boat ramp, the one that listed the legal fishing hours. It was their sign. But Wendy just shook her head, like I was the one who didn't understand the situation. The look in her eyes told me this wasn't just about fishing. It was about power. She was going to crush me under the weight of bureaucracy. As I walked away, I couldn't help but notice the fountains by the clubhouse, still running full blast, despite a county-issued drought advisory. Water shooting 20 feet into the air, sprinklers running nonstop over grass that didn't need watering. I muttered to myself, feeling the irony slap me in the face. They were lecturing me about environmental damage while wasting thousands of gallons of water on their stupid landscaping. I decided then and there I wasn't going to let this slide. Wendy wanted to play the environmental game? I'd show her what real environmental control looked like. I pulled out my phone and started searching community water systems, who controls fountains, lake water management, and then I found it. Lakeview Dam Company. The business that controlled every water feature in our community, the fountains, the streams, the sprinklers, the whole damn thing. I called immediately. Commercial Property Solutions, a woman answered. How can I help you? I'm interested in buying the Lakeview Dam Company. Is it still for sale? Hold on a second, she said, and I could hear her tapping at her keyboard. Yes, it's still available. The owner, Grant Moore, is motivated to sell. Are you a qualified buyer? I glanced at my bank balance. $85,000 in personal savings, $95,000 in business savings, and an approved credit line for another $100,000. I was ready. I believe I am, I said. What's the asking price? $325,000, she replied, her voice a little surprised, like I wasn't your average buyer. But the owner is flexible for the right buyer. I hung up and looked at the $3,500 fine in my hand. They wanted to fine me for fishing? Fine. If Wendy wanted to play dirty, I'd play too. And I had the money to make sure I won. I went inside to talk to Laura. How do you feel about me buying a dam company? She nearly dropped the coffee pot. What are you talking about? I showed her the citation and then pulled up the listing for the Lakeview Dam Company on my phone. They fined me $3,500 for fishing legally. I found out who controls the water features. I'm buying the company. Laura stared at the screen for a long moment before her accountant brain kicked into gear. You could do this, she said. The numbers work. The next few days were a blur of calls, contracts, and paperwork. By the time I stood at the gate of the Lakeview Dam facility, I knew this wasn't just about getting back at Wendy. I was about to take control of something far more powerful, something she thought she owned. Grant Moore, the owner, was older, weathered from years of hard work. He greeted me at the gate. You interested in buying the place? He asked, shaking my hand. I am, I said. Tell me about it. Grant walked me through the control room, a space filled with pressure gauges, flow meters, and a wall of switches. Everything in the community's water system ran from here. Fountains, irrigation, everything. We manage water for the entire community, he explained. And frankly, Wendy's been hell to deal with. She's been demanding we violate drought restrictions for her events. It's costing me my health. I could see the toll it had taken on him. He was done with her. I offered him what he wanted, $325,000. It was a done deal. By Monday, my boat shop had lost two of its biggest contracts. All of them cited environmental concerns. I'd been targeted, not just for my fishing, but because I had something Wendy couldn't control. I spent the next few days learning the technical side of running the dam. The systems were complex, but I was no stranger to marine maintenance. I'd learned enough to know that running this facility required proper care and responsibility. And I was going to do it right, unlike Wendy, who had used intimidation and lies to get her way. But as I dug into the operation, I found something that changed everything. Behind the main distribution panel, I found unauthorized equipment, secondary pumps bypassing conservation controls and feeding water directly to the clubhouse landscaping. I called Grant. "Did you know about this?" "No," he said, his voice strained. "If someone added that pump, it wasn't with my knowledge." This wasn't just about fishing anymore. This was about corruption, systematic theft from the HOA's funds, disguised as community improvement projects. I was in the middle of something much bigger than I had ever expected. The next few weeks were a whirlwind. I documented everything, every conversation, every interaction, and every piece of evidence. Laura and I found discrepancies in the HOA's financial records. Wendy had been funneling money into a shell company, Clark Maintenance Services, registered to her address. She was skimming from the community funds, using fake projects to justify inflated costs. It was time to fight back. I scheduled a meeting at the dam facility. The community showed up in force, cameras in hand, ready to see what was happening. I flipped the switches, shutting down every fountain, every sprinkler system. The water stopped flowing. The crowd was stunned. "This is real environmental responsibility," I said, looking at Wendy, who had stormed over, red-faced and furious. "You think you control the water? I do now, and I'm not turning it back on until the HOA removes the fraudulent environmental violations from my record and issues a public apology." The shock on her face was priceless. "You can't do this," she spat. "You're holding the community hostage." "I'm following county regulations," I replied. Water conservation during drought conditions. Fountains and non-essential irrigation are suspended during a drought. This is not a threat. It's compliance. As the crowd murmured, I pulled out the evidence. Photos of the storm damage that Wendy had misrepresented as fishing damage, expert testimony she'd stolen from a stock website, and the fraudulent invoices from her shell company. The truth was out. Wendy was cornered. The community had seen her lies, and the police had already started looking into her finances. What started as a petty fishing fine had unearthed a criminal network. By the end of the week, Wendy was arrested, and the investigation into her theft uncovered over $127,000 in embezzled funds. The community was in shock, but the truth had been revealed. Wendy's reign of terror was over. In the weeks that followed, I implemented reforms, financial transparency, proper water management, and accountability. The community learned that standing up to corruption wasn't just about fishing. It was about fighting for what's right. As for me, I still fish every weekend, and now I own the water.